DJ, or select location?
I just
Babe,
love
you can
scallops.
everything else.
Give me the bacon wrap scallops.
My sister is currently debating if she wants to do a taco truck at her wedding.
That'd be awesome. People don't feel obligated to sit at their table the whole time, wait for the food to come out. That sounds way superior.
The chairman of the BZA.
Yeah,
City of Albany
yeah.
endorsed.
Let's go with the taco truck. Do I have a second on that motion?
Discussion.
Favor,
I
discussion?
still have time to add it to the agenda.
Yeah.
Haley Barnum's wedding,
Haley
Traverse
Barnum's
City, Michigan.
Wait, it's your wedding?
My sister.
Oh, I was like, oh, Haley, yes, Haley. I know the difference between people. I know names.
Okay.
Amanda. Yeah.
You with council? Hours of deduction.
Seriously, not with, yeah. Thank you so much.
Signs and fences.
It's some,
Yeah.
you know, fun places here.
Well said on this side, so. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, Martin.
All right, are we good for broadcasting? Yep. All right, well, my computer's wrong, but I'm gonna guess that we're just about 6 o'clock. So with that, I'd like to welcome folks in the audience and folks joining us online to the November 30th, 2022 public hearing workshop for the City of Albany Board of Zoning Appeals. Martin Daly, Chair of the Board. We do have quorum here this evening. We do have a split menu, so to speak, this evening. We have a public workshop in which we will discuss an application before us and make sure that we have all the materials necessary in order to have a complete application moving forward, at which time we'll work with staff to make sure that we can go through the application and tease out some of the important factors that we may want to see highlighted for the public hearing. And if that's a good sneak preview, the second element of the agenda is our actually public hearing, where we will discuss cases that are before the board that have already gone through the workshop. And then we'll have the applicant come up and provide some context for each of the applications before us. So with that, I'd like to start out with the public workshop agenda. We have one case before us on the public workshop agenda. That's variance 123 and 124, both part of the same application. 475 Park Avenue. The applicant is Saxton Sign Corporation, and they're making an application on behalf of that property. So with that, I'll turn it over to staff.
Thanks. Thank you. So, make sure I got everything here. 75 Park Avenue, located in the MUCI Mixed Use Campus Institutional. Request is regarding several requests here, but the first one was regarding the installation of new lettering on an existing freestanding sign. Let me just go over to the images on this. Apologize, it might not be on this slide deck, I think it's on the other one, but I'll go to that afterwards. So that's the existing freestanding sign. Then there is a separate request regarding the installation of an electronic message center, specifically as a wall sign. So there are 2 area variances that would be needed regarding the electronic message center, and that's because the electronic message center is not allowed in that zoning district. And secondly, where it is allowed, is only allowed as a freestanding or a monument style sign. And in this case, they're requesting it to be a wall sign. This is just the location of where it's being proposed, and it would be facing Park Avenue. So here are some just general notes. Sign, for the first variance, 123. Sign's already in existence, so they're really looking at the height of it, which is currently at 10 feet, and the max is 8. I would advise that the applicant provide more information as to, if the sign can be lowered to 8 feet, or if there's anything preventing that, so that it could meet code. If not, kind of outline why not. And I think for most of the other elements, they address the criteria set forth. And then also, there are other alternatives that were sought, as a means to not have to seek this variance. And then for the electronic message center, 2 variances there. So we'll start with the first one, 124. Specifically, did the applicant consider other types of signs? By other types, I mean, did they consider things that aren't an electronic message center that would be allowed per the code? If they did consider other types of signs, was there a particular reason that they felt that the electronic message center is, particularly what's necessary to achieve the goals that they've kind of outlined in their application? So I think more information is kind of needed to really substantiate, if that's the case or not. The application also provided some other similar signs, other electronic message centers. But a lot of them are not either they're not within the same area, meaning like nearby, or they're in different zoning districts. I would just say to the applicant to make sure that, any reference to other signs that they're trying to draw a comparison are either ones that are located nearby or ones that are in the same zoning district, so that we can compare, we can make a fair comparison to other businesses or entities that are using electronic message center.
So you mentioned that, is this, the property was previously a school, is it continuing to be a school?
Yes, and forget what the language is going to be on there, and that's the applicant specifically.
It is gonna be a school, it's the Albany Charters, Albany Leadership Middle School for Girls.
Okay, so I think in the past, the board has considered an application like this with a school to be a pretty narrow use. And that oftentimes we've been asked to review an application and comparing factors are other schools. So, we may want to, there is certainly an element to the district, certainly, but also I think other schools would be germane to being similar types of institutions, and whether they have electronic movable sign or not. So.
With I guess the element of whether those movable signs are freestanding or wall signs. So it sounds like this is 2 layered.
Yes, yep. Yeah, so they should be.
I feel like I've seen other schools, but it's not on the walls, right? Like I believe other schools in the districts have electronic messages on some of their signs, but I think it's not on the walls, it's on the freestanding.
Yeah,
I may be wrong.
I think that's something that can be noted in the application as to why they're looking to continue with the sign as is, or why a freestanding sign doesn't work. There may be elements of the site which make that possible or not possible.
Yeah. Just,
Not unusual for a school to come to us with that request, so that's a good point.
Yeah, and that gets into this other slide for the second variance regarding the electronic message center 125. So if the board were to allow the type of sign being the electronic message center, really making sure the application speaks to the difference of the monument sign or freestanding rather, or a wall sign, and then not only drawing comparisons for other institutions that might use them, but also like what specific reason, or if there's something that can be achieved through a wall sign that can't be achieved through a freestanding sign. I know in some circumstance, there's limitations on where you can place freestanding signs. So if that's the case, that should be stated in the application. Those are the main points I have on this application. So if there's other questions regarding it. And I will just note that it's been, go back to the notes here. This one has been referred to the Albany County Planning Board as well. So we're just waiting for the their decision, which will likely be deferring to the board.
Is it within a certain distance of a state or county facility?
Um,
Like I know that absolutely the governor's vision. but it's-
Yeah, I forget what it was. Like most properties in the city of Albany, they're within the 500 feet.
Okay.
So moving on to the next one, 1006 Central Ave, also workshop item. Second Signs Corporation. Change the spelling of the name there, but this one is in the mixed use community highway zoning district. Application is looking to install 5 new wall signs as part of a McDonald's branding on the building. And it's specifically for area variance 126, again, to allow 5 signs where the maximum permitted is 1 per street frontage. So we can see here on the left-hand side where the building is located. So actually, it's an interesting parcel because you see on the right hand, at the upper right-hand corner, the building is actually situated on a separate lot from a lot of the parking area. But we are talking about the area where the building is situated, which does kind of cross the property boundaries slightly. So for our review of the application, just a general note on this, a lot of the content that was provided in the application seemed to be a bit rushed. We just advised that the applicant kind of proofread it. There's some things that I think were clear what was intended to be stated, but other items that just based on how some of the sentences were written, I wasn't exactly clear on what they were trying to state or trying to provide as evidence to obtain the variances. And then more specifically, there should be information provided as to whether alternative solutions were looked at. And then within that, did any alternatives include even a lesser number of signs, even if it were to exceed what the code allows? So even if our code allows 1 sign per street frontage and they're requesting 5, did they look at meeting the code under the 1, but also did they consider 2, 3, or even 4, as part of what the board has to consider is the minimum variance that's necessary. So it might be even if the board decides that more than 1 is allowed, maybe it's not all 5 that are being requested. So I think the applicant should address that more clearly. And then, for each of the signs, it's unclear if they have a specific purpose or goal that each sign is trying to achieve, whether that's, directional or if it's just branding or advertising. So if that can be addressed by the applicant too, in terms of, addressing the intended goal of the specific signs, and which would kind of lead to why they're requesting the number of signs that they are. Again, that's all I have on 1006 Central. If there's any questions?
Yeah, I think with these, we're required by the law to look for the minimum variance necessary that balances the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the community around it. So in an application like this, I understand they may be replacing 5 signs, but the law is considering the best practice for a zoning board is to try to make a site more compliant with the code. So minimizing the variance that creates that balance is thrust upon the board to consider. So that would be something that should be teased out in the application if that's possible, and to what extent it may be.
And the other thing I forgot to note in here, but something that's come up lately with a lot of the sign variances is if this is something specifically being requested by, the company itself is like a rebranding or something like that, we should have a letter from, you know, the corporate entity, just kind of supporting that, so them stating that this is part of their new branding, and that's, you know, if that's part of the reason for the request, that should be submitted as well as part of the application.
Yeah, it doesn't speak to the self-created hardship wholly, but it does create a scenario where especially with a site like this, how a franchisee may find it difficult to meet the requirements, given that they're stuck between our zoning code requirements and rule or regulation provided from a corporate entity with no control. So I think it adds to the application.
Avi, just for clarification, does the McDonald's currently have 5 signs and they're looking to replace, or did I just misunderstand that?
They do, they're not the exact signs or necessarily in the exact locations, but they do have more signs than what's allowed currently.
So are we talking like, I'm just trying to picture like, so it's like the arches and then it just says McDonald's on each.
Yeah, so I think you noted that it's not clarified in the application what the intention of the signs is, because I
Yeah.
think all of us from memory could draw like the most recognized
Yeah.
brand, and
Yeah.
I know we don't so I'm just very curious, like why the need for so many signs over the number?
Yeah, and I see they,
One frontage.
yeah, they mentioned that it'll help, having it on different sides will help, people recognize it on coming down Central. So I think if they can flush that out, and also, I mean, I don't know how this can be rectified, but they say that by only having the one sign, they'll be out of place because every other business on Central as part of the neighborhood has multiple signs, which, I mean, I can think of a few that only have one sign, so I don't know if that really carries weight, at least in my opinion. So maybe if they could flush that out a little bit or try to explain those things.
Okay. And then I've pulled up what was submitted as part of the sign renderings. It's in the project files as well, but just to go through that. So that, these are an example of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we still in practice, or we broadcasting? I mean, I know we're in the
So
workshop.
it's broadcasting.
Okay,
Yep.
because it says at the top, you're in a practice session, start webinar. If you go to the full screen, I see we're broadcasting on YouTube, just, I don't know if you're expecting anybody to join by Zoom and submit questions.
Oh, I see. No, we're not. But one sec, because there's 2 windows open, so let me just double check.
Mhm. What is looking at, do we have any other questions about that application?
I just want to clarify, my computer wasn't loading. It looks like some of the signs are for the drive-through, which I guess makes a little more sense to me. So for what that's worth. I was just trying to figure out how there could be 5 signs on one building.
Is painting on concrete, like on the ground itself, considered a sign?
Not a wall sign.
What was that?
I was asking if, so I'm just thinking about like in the context of a drive-through, like there's usually like an arrow on the ground, and if that like conveys the same amount of information but is not constituted
Mhm.
a sign, and it's like an alternative considered, and here's
Mhm.
why.
Yeah,
It doesn't work,
certain things like that would be exempt. The 2 of these signs that are requested, and I'll provide this in the, make sure it's more clear for the hearing itself. The intent was for them to be more directional, but they exceed the size of what would be considered a directional sign, which are exempt. They're considered wall signs. And then their, 2 additional wall signs because of that. That's all I have for the staff review comments for the public hearing.
The workshop, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, great. What's the date? These will be part of a public workshop? Like a December date? I'm sorry, public hearing.
That would be.
So I get here as well. Right, put in the spot, because I can do the same thing.
It'll be. I'll say the 14th, but let me double check, because I know it gets a little weird with the holidays, so I'll confirm that in a minute.
Yep, December 14th. Okay, great. All right.
That'll be both of them. I mean,
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, we just need to have the comments back from the county planning board before we can make any take any action, but we should have it by then.
Okay. Barring any further discussion, I would like to move into the public hearing portion of our tonight's program. For those of you who are joining us for the first time online in the audience, the rundown of the meeting is we'll call up an application, review some of it to get everybody on the same page, so to speak. And then we'll have an opportunity for the applicant to come up and speak about the project, at which point in time the board may or may not ask questions. At the conclusion of that process, we'll open up the project for public comment. Folks can come forward either online or joining us. I don't know if anybody's joining us, or here in the room and speak to a particular application. The time limit is 2 minutes, I believe, but we do accept public comments in the form of letters to the Board of Zoning Appeals as well, if there's more time needed from a member of the public, at which time the applicant can back up and rebut comments if that is necessary. And the board has the option to move a case or to hold it if we're seeking some more information or some more consideration on a particular application. So with that, let's move into the first case before us, and let's make sure I am on the right page. 80 State Street, area variance 111. Also Saxon Stein Corporation representing the property.
thank you.
So walk us just a refresher and
Yep, absolutely. So I'm here representing Cohen Dyckman Law Firm. They are looking to put a little over 24 square foot illuminated channel letters on the facade of 80 State Street office building in downtown Albany. The reason that we are needing to request the variance is because it is exceeding the 1 sign per frontage. Per last time we were here in discussion or in the workshop, and through the pictures that you'll see there, this is a large office building with many large corporations within it that hold multiple floors above the ground floor that already have existing signage. There really is no other alternative for my client to have any other representation on the building other than being down on that ground floor. The building doesn't adjust for it with the height and being all glass, and it really wouldn't make sense being that they're up on the 9th floor of the building, would kind of defeat the entire purpose of signage. Alternatives such as signage in the lobby and things like that also don't really accomplish the effect of what they're looking for, to be visible to their existing clients and also have some advertising to the outside world. And the last point to make on the existing signage is there actually was a sign prior to this in the exact location that the client is requesting this to be.
Is that part of the reason why they're putting the sign in the same place? The utilities already exist, come up with signs.
Landlord, that's what the landlord requires to. I believe it was 2 part of their lease agreement.
And to be clear, this application is for one sign on the Pearl Street side of the building, not the State Street.
Sorry,
side.
you are correct.
Do you have any questions from the board? I don't have any. Normally I'm full of questions. I think this is a pretty straightforward situation. Do we have any wishes of board members? Want to hold and think about this one some more? It's an opportunity to think about it. Are there any other questions people want to seek out?
If I may, I would just state, because I don't recall offhand, but it requires the certificate of appropriateness. So, and I've spoken with staff about that as well. It'll be issued. It's not something that will hold up this sign from being granted, but I would just say that should be a condition of any approval.
When the county planning board has deferred local action already. Back on the point. Do we want to hold like?
What will it require?
A certificate of appropriateness because it's in a historic district. As part of the fact that they're putting the sign in that same area where a previous one, that's also something that's considered for that review since it's in a historic district.
So the historic mission.
No, it's done by staff because it doesn't reach the level of having to go to the commission itself.
Okay. So it's a lot.
It's basically submitted as part of their building permit application.
Okay, thank you.
And does it need a seeker declaration as well?
Yeah, it's an unlisted action.
We can take these in 2 parts if folks want to, or take one part up.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Zoning Appeal issues a negative declaration of its variance request.
Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Do you have any other wishes of the board?
Mark, I'll make a motion, the Board of Zoning Appeals grants area variance, 111.
Do we have a second?
Do you want to do you want to put a condition on that?
Oh.
Based on.
Oh, the certificate of appropriateness?
I'll reframe
Okay.
that.
Motion rescinded.
I rescinded, I would like to make a motion that the Albany Board of Zoning Appeals grants area variance 111, conditional on the approval of the certificate of appropriateness.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right, thank you.
Good, have a good evening. Thank you.
Second case is project 00489, seeking multiple area variances. This is for, I'm sorry, am I right? Too many signs, everyone. The second case is project 00486, area variances 112, 113, 114, and 115 for 1 Sandage Way. The applicant is AJ Signs.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emma Heck with AJ Sign Company, representing our client John Holmes Management at their property landmark Albany at 1 Sandage Way. They are seeking a variance for 2 freestanding signs. One is the main entrance sign, which is 20 square feet, and the other sign is a leasing office sign that is 15.5 square feet. They are requesting variance because They are in a zone where they are only allowed 6 square feet and 1 sign per property. We believe that the proposed size of each sign is going to be necessary just for a visibility standpoint. Both signs are within reason for size wise, we believe. And especially considering the location that they're in, off of Fuller Road, and considering the surrounding properties that are on that road. So for next slide, the character of the neighborhood, I know was discussed at the last workshop, about just the surrounding properties. Again, the complex is over 250 units, so it's a substantial property, and the surrounding locations definitely have larger signs. I do know that SUNY is out of the jurisdiction for the city, but we did provide a couple examples of signage surrounding this property, just to give reference of kind of the different signs within, you know, I think a 5 mile or so radius. The first is right down the street. This is University of Albany, which the sign is 102.55 square feet. You can see on the right-hand side, that's an aerial map, just going to show how close in proximity it is to Sandwich Way. The next sign is also pretty close, and that is around 32 square feet. The next sign is also very close. That is the Nanotech sign, and that is 160 square feet. And then lastly, this is an apartment complex kind of right behind the landmark Albany property, Freedom Apartments, which is approximately 80 square feet. So within reference just to the surrounding areas, obviously the signage proposed is significantly smaller than any other sign within a 5 mile radius. I really, looking at Google Maps and then just driving through the area, I personally didn't see any signs smaller than that. So I guess it is a good way to show that, you know, we really tried to make sure we are staying as close as possible within reason, size wise, to what technically is requested or required for square footage. For alternatives considered, what I did was I had our graphics team superimpose what 6 square feet would look like from a distance while you're going down the road. And as you can see on the left-hand side, I don't know if it's just me, but visibility wise, I can't read what that sign would look like, the main entrance sign on the left. And I actually had our team lay out the size of the letter sets. So at 6 square feet, your main letter set for the main entrance sign, the landmark, would only be 3.2, not the exact, 3.2 inches high, which 3.2 inches from a distance, certainly at 30 miles an hour, is hard to read.
You're talking about each line of text?
I'm talking, yeah, so the landmark, the main letter set on that sign on the left-hand side, that would be the 3.2 inches high at the 6 square feet, and then the leasing office sign on the right-hand side would be 3.9 square feet, so still very small.
Sorry to interrupt you, can you humor me and just control plus in so we can see the letter set on the sign? I realize it's gonna get pixelated, but just is it working? It probably doesn't, that function doesn't.
There you go.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's what we're looking at as far as.
And for reference, a standard feather flag is about 14 feet high, so you can kind of see in comparison. And I'm assuming we did not make that site sign, but in the background, that site sign generally is either 3x7 or 4x8, so that's 32 square feet.
What's the blue sign? Is that
In the background, yeah, the site sign. My guess would be it's 3x7 or 4x8.
And what is that for, construction entrance or what? Is
I
the-
think it's a temporary sign. We did not make that, so I can't speak to
Okay.
any.
Yeah, it's just a temporary sign that was put up, I believe, during and just after the construction of it.
And another point to the 6 square feet, when we bring it down to that size, the leasing office sign is only 46 inches high, and then the main entrance sign is only 44 inches high. So in the Northeast, when you get 2+ feet of snow, half of our sign unfortunately is gonna be covered in the snow. which will be obviously problematic for visitors and residents, potential residents to be able to read the sign.
So just for my clarity, what we're looking at on the left is what you're proposing to do if we grant the variance. On the right is what you're saying, what it would look like if you didn't need a variance.
No, so this slide is specifically at the 6 square feet that would be technically required by code. The next slide is the proposed signage that we're asking for. So for visibility reasons, the left is the 20 square feet. So that kind of puts in perspective what that would look like superimposed, and then the 15.5, which is the leasing office, what that would look like. And granted, the leasing office probably looks a little bit bigger because that's a little bit closer. That picture is a little bit more zoomed in than the leasing or than the main entrance sign. But as you can see, both very reasonably sized, considering how many units are around it. And I don't think that, you know, given the size of these signs that they jump out and they're a huge, you know, there's so much going on with how many units are around, there's trees, it's a busy road. I think that it fits into its environment pretty well. And they're not that big. And then really the leasing office sign is 6 feet high at the proposed size, and then the main entrance sign would be 8 feet high at the proposed sign. So that would be kind of just as high, if not a little less than the street sign, and certainly obviously smaller than those feather flags.
Are they internally lit? Are they external? What's the?
They'll just be spotlit.
lighting plan?
Yeah, just spotlit, so, and the lighting will be, you know, nice, it'll just be a nice soft glow, nothing too bright or blaring. Excuse me. And then the next slides kind of just repeat what we said in our last workshop. Sorry, let me flip to that page. So it just basically says kind of, like I said, what we already had discussed, 14 square feet additional from the 6 square feet allowed, and then 9.5 feet additional for the leasing office compared to the 6 square feet allowed. And then on our last slide, just the impact on the environment. We do not believe it's going to have any environmental impact to this area. It will not affect any service, city services or utilities. Again, I think it'll just be an enhancement, being able for local fire departments and emergency services to be able to easily find the locations, and especially it'll be nice for Uber drivers, visitors, potential residents to be able to easily find, especially pulling into the leasing office versus pulling into the main entrance. Kind of gives a differentiation between the two. So if somebody lives a little bit closer to the leasing office, they can tell them pull into this entrance versus the main entrance. So we do not believe it's going to have a negative impact or anything like that on the environment. And then the last slide, self-created difficulty. I think signage is always a self-created difficulty, but in this sense, the larger signs could be seen as a good thing, like I said, for motorists to be able to easily identify the location, especially considering there's 2 other significantly large apartment complexes, both the Freedom Apartments and Empire Commons surrounding these, and these are within probably less than 2 miles of this property. So if you are a first-time visitor or a potential renter for the apartment complex, and we don't have visible signage, it could be confusing and hard to try to find which complex, you know, you're supposed to be at. So having prominent signage and easily readable signage will definitely be a necessity for this property.
Are those feather flags temporary while you're waiting for?
Yeah, just kind of identify. Yeah, again, we did not do those either. So, but yes, they are temporary.
Has there been confusion with folks going to the University of Albany apartments instead of this? Because I mean, they usually have to go on to campus. Like this is a little removed from campus, so I'm just wondering, because there's no other apartment complexes near it other than what's at the university.
With the Freedom Apartments, I believe that there's been a little bit of confusion, just because I think you can kind of get turned around, especially if you're not familiar with the area. Not so much the Empire, but the Freedom for sure.
Thank you.
We heard any comments from traffic engineering as far as the proximity of the signs and the sidewalk and the road, as far as visibility, sight lines, turn movements?
Yeah, and I think there's, let me just pull up. This kind of shows the proposed locations of the signs. We did a site visit prior to this formally being submitted. The traffic engineering was on site as well, and we just discussed the proposal for signage in these locations and height. And it was not an issue.
Do you have any other questions before we go to public comment? Anybody in the audience that wishes to speak for public comment period? Do you have anybody online?
There's no one registered.
Yeah. So there's nothing to worry about. All right. I know, but it's like people pay attention. We're live streaming, so I won't disparage my neighbors, but you know, care about your community a little bit to speak up. I don't have any additional questions about this particular application. And if we've heard from traffic engineering, I don't see an issue with sightlines since the site visit was done.
I would like to note one thing. There is a typo on there. The leasing office sign will be double-sided, just so it can be seen from both directions, obviously.
Oh,
I did see that it says single-sided. It will be double-sided. I just want to make.
They're monument signs. I was assuming that was the case.
Yeah.
So, okay. Do we have any thoughts from the board? Additional time to consider, approval, denial? What are folks thinking? Any questions if we want to move to the seeker portion of the review process?
I'll make a motion to, the board issue a negative declaration under seeker for this zoning variance request.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
I think we've been doing, we have to do them one by one, right? The 4 different area variances.
I believe, can we do a consent agenda on area variances?
It should be stated, ideally it would be a vote on each
Variance?
variance since there are separate actions.
Okay.
The secret covers the whole thing, but.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to grant area variance 0113 to allow for a 20 square feet freestanding sign where the maximum permitted is 6 square feet.
Second.
good motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Does anybody want to make a motion on area variance 113?
I'll make a motion on area variance 113, allowing for an 8.8 foot tall freestanding sign with a maximum height allowed is 5 feet.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For some boards, area variance 114.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Zoning Appeals grants area variance 118.
114.
I'm sorry.
It's too many
I'll
numbers.
take that, yeah. I'll resend that. Make a motion that the Board of Zoning Appeals grants area variance 114.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do you have any wishes of the board as it relates to area variance 115?
I'll make a motion to grant area variance 115, allowing for a 6 foot tall freestanding sign where maximum height allowed is 5 feet.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That concludes motions for area variance related to project 486 for 1 Sandwich Way.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Our next application before the board is for project 489. The application is for several area variances, 116, 117, 118, 119, and 120. The property address is 943 Central Avenue, and the applicant is AJ Sons. Welcome.
Well, I'm Tom Mueller with AJ Sign Company. In summary, this is the Leah Hyundai dealer on Central Ave. They're remodeling their facility, and as part of the reason they're doing that is it's required by Hyundai. Hyundai rebranded, somewhat changed their look, so they're requiring all the dealerships to bring their facilities into compliance with their new brand. That's the short version of why they're doing these new signs. The signs that we're proposing are actually smaller than everything that's there now. So we have a service sign on the building. Those are 2-foot tall letters. Leah, the name of the dealership, Leah, 2 foot tall, and then Hyundai letters on the building as well, all internally lit channel letters. The building's set back off the road a bit. You have your car lot in front of it, so this size is going to be what we'll need to have to be visible from Central Ave, so we can see the required branding. The monument sign, there's 2 monuments. There's a little directional that as you pull in, it's on the right-hand side now. We're gonna replace that with this 4-foot tall monument. Again, like Emma brought up in the last application, in the Northeast, we have snow, so we like to have them tall enough that we're out of the snow, have some plantings underneath them perhaps. Big enough that it's readable for motorists to see where to turn in, so it's safe on busy Central Avenue. The large monument is a little bit smaller than what's there now. It's 25 feet tall. In the neighborhood we're in on Central Avenue, there's a bunch of car dealerships. They all have very, very similar monument signs. This is what's required to be seen on Central Avenue. It gets it up over top of the cars. Where they put this sign is going to be a platform that they haven't built yet. It's like a landscape element that they're going to put a car on. So we want to be up above that to be seen. Again, see this when you're coming up Central Avenue, you can see it from a distance so that you know where this is. It marks the entrance. It'll get people in where they need to get, and they'll see the signs on the building and directional aids once they're inside. In summary, that's what we're looking for.
Could you walk me through the monument sign in particular? Are there elements of that sign other than the name and the logo changing, or is that completely just color, name, limited, and logo? The tall monument sign?
What's changing?
Can you walk me through the changes on the taller monument sign?
It's basically just a different look. The existing sign now is the blue. It's just a totally different look. They changed their look to this brown. The Hyundai is actually a little smaller. The sign's a little smaller. It's a little shorter. It's really just the new Hyundai look, new branding.
In regards to the service sign, which is just a directional solely, why does that sign need to be replaced?
The one that's there now, I believe, is too close to the road starters.
Over the building? Is that part of the application, the service sign over the bay doors?
Over the doors.
Yeah.
Just the new branding. They redid the whole building. They ripped everything off of the whole facade's new. Everything in the building is really new at this point. And that's their new font, new style.
Oh, so if they're gonna change what's the texture of the building, that service sign has to be changed as well.
Right, Hyundai requires them to, again, redo the building into their new look and new branding, and then the signs as well. I included in the back of this, the letter from, or the requirements from Hyundai, so you
Yeah.
can see what's driving this. Again, everything here is smaller than what's there.
So for Avi, I got a $1 million question for you. In an application like this, let's say the service sign, what constitutes that being a new sign versus a replacement of an existing sign because of building maintenance?
So what constitutes
Yeah.
it being a new sign versus a replacement?
Right,
I mean, they're, in a lot of ways, it's kind of the same thing. Any alteration
any
of
of
a
these,
sign is considered, it triggers the need for it to comply with the USDO
that's
requirements.
what
So
I was thinking.
it
There's no-
essentially is,
Yeah.
we would treat it as a new sign.
Because I'm thinking the other ones are substantially changing as far as the information and the look. But that one is one that I was wondering about.
Yeah, essentially the only difference is if it's a maintenance of an existing, but it's not changing a sign. But any change would be, is kind of considered a new sign.
Do you have any questions from the board while I'm mulling this one over?
Could you just pull up the freestanding signs?
And
So these are both. One is, the one on the right is, I believe on, we're on the site map on the right side of the entrance, and the smaller one is, thank you. So the pylon is the taller one, is that correct?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Have we received any comments from traffic or engineering about the signs and their location?
no, there's nothing noting any issues or conflicts. And in terms of setbacks and things like that, it does comply with the USDO requirements.
So I just, in the interest of putting my cards on the table, one of my concerns with an application like this is on its face is just swapping out. Right, it's looking to change. It's a substantial amount of changes when you look at the code with the degree of the changes in regards to deviation from the code as it exists. And one of my concerns is that we're going to be seeing a lot of applications like this on Central Avenue while the planning department is reviewing the sign code. And my understanding is we're going to be getting a lot of cases like this where, similar to the McDonald's situation where we have the trigger for a new sign being what might otherwise be the modification of a logo or the necessity to make a repair to a building. So one of my concerns is that we're going so far as to considering these in mass, be able to set a precedent for wholesale changes like this, either de facto denials because they're all similar in the fact that we see them as significant deviations, or just de facto approvals because we've seen them as modifications and not substantial changes. So I'm taking just a careful look at this particular application. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts about the difficulties with these types of changes in branding triggering, as opposed to what I would consider more moving the needle towards new sign. Like the previous applications were net new signs as opposed to modifications of signs. That's where I'm struggling.
I was trying to pull up the information from Hyundai. So are these signs part of what they are requiring for dealerships?
Exactly.
Okay, so like these specific ones, not necessarily just the new logo.
No, Hyundai has signs, like, they have a catalog of signs, basically, and they tell you what you're gonna do.
It's in your franchise
It's in your
agreement.
franchise agreement. I mean, you guys will probably run across this with everybody, Nissan, Ford, Chevy,
Yeah.
we do a lot of dealership work and this is the sign.
Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Anybody? Public comment?
Nobody registered.
Martin, do we know, is there a time frame on the planning board's review of?
Not that I know of, I think it would be unfair of us to take action on this one solely because of that.
Yeah.
But I would like some feedback. I personally, and it's not my style to push you guys to make decisions. You're free to however you want to. I personally, just speaking out loud, which is the only way to speak, I really want some, if we're gonna see a lot of applications like this, I'd really like some input from council on these types of projects, because we're gonna start to see a lot of them, and I wanna make sure that I understand that they wrote the law. So I wanna make sure that they provide input on cases like this, so we're not setting a bad precedent moving forward. I know we have a great degree of independence, but I don't want to make precedent. I'd rather follow the degree of latitude which the law allows in reviewing cases like this. So I would like some feedback when it relates to cases like this. That's my own personal, with the project that's magnitude, and the fact that we're probably going to see a lot of cases like this coming forward. But if you want to make motions and things, I'm not.
If I may just make a comment, I would just say, for things like this, I think your point is well taken. In order to do the best to differentiate this application, the site, the signs from other applications. In other words, trying to, state clearly how it's a unique or somewhat unique situation to it. The other thing here is we look at like a balancing test when it comes to the area variances. So, it could very well be that you see that they meet, 3 or 4 of the criteria, but maybe not some of the others. So maybe it's considering, when you're taking a look at the character of the community versus alternatives, things like that. So I would just say any motion should contain language specific to why it's unique or not unique. Kind of differentiating this application from others.
And one of the struggles I have is we're required to minimize the variance necessary in order to make it more streamlined with code. And I understand the requirements being handed down to the franchisee about the scope of their sign requirements. So there's some conflict there. I think it's worth adding to the application how much wiggle room there is. If there's no ability to minimize the variance, that should be part of the record. Or if there's areas where that variance can be minimized, that's important to add to the record as well. In regards to perhaps the service sign, which may not be something that the franchisee or that corporate may be so interested in, or the smaller entrance signs where it comes to the showroom. But that would be good to help make the case, and also be able for us to wrap our heads around how much of this is being driven by what the applicant deems a mandate versus how much there is room to work to minimize the variance necessary. Any questions from the board?
So I guess I'm curious when it comes to that, I think you've talked a little bit, we're looking at the requirements from the corporation being passed down to the franchisee. But so you're saying to us, these are the best signs with what's required from the franchisee that can, or the closest sign of what's required and what needs to, like, as close as we can get to meeting, like, was there an attempt to meet code and meet the requirements? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
I mean, these are signs that are, if they were to go with a shorter monument sign, they have that elevated platform that's on the plans there with an SUV on it. Is it gonna be visible coming up Central Avenue? Probably not. The directional sign, you need that, it can't really be smaller. And then the building sign, Service and Leah, it's set back off the road so far. We need to brand that building so people know what it is. So there is a directional nature to these signs. And most car dealerships have a lot more than this, honestly. So is it minimized? Yes. And this is what everybody, the Hyundai people and Leah's feel is effective, and I agree. What's there now works. Why change it? That kind of theory.
You mentioned the size, the dimensions of the proposed signage here is smaller than what's existing, correct?
Every sign's smaller than what's there now.
So is it smaller because that's what the corporate requires, or was that the franchisee's attempt to minimize with, get closer to the
It's an attempt to get closer, give some based on the code,
And so that's,
still be effective.
okay.
The height of the monument sign, is that being driven by the desire to retain the original monument, or is that being driven by the desire to have the sign visible? Like, is there a requirement in the Hyundai's guidance there that sets the height of the monument sign?
It's visibility. What's there now is visible, and it's a little taller. We're bringing it down some to be a little more compliant. And again, we're adding that display platform there. So it's
I guess,
what we feel is effective and still.
so that's a design, the height of that larger monument square sign is not, let me put this in other terms. Hyundai didn't come to you and say, your monument sign has to be, let me go to the height being proposed, because I think that's easier. 25 feet tall.
What they recommend for this site.
And that's in their signage requirements?
That's their signage requirements right there. So they essentially gave this as, here's what we need to do based on this site.
Can we go to that in the requirements where the sign height and the monument sign is required?
You're talking about these requirements?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm looking for sign heights. As far as
Yeah, I believe it references, I think the only reference on this one is, trying to get the mouse to show.
Mhm.
Must be specified in the design manual. Give me one sec, let me see if I can pull up, it's
Okay.
not in the PowerPoint, but I believe we have the letter from the corporation, so let me see if I can pull it up.
Thank you.
If you look at it, the Leo letters are a little more than 12 feet up. So if we were to put the SUV on that platform, you're gonna be pretty close to the bottom of those Leo letters. So it gets it up to the point where the sign, the message is readable.
How tall is your monument, is your platform?
It's 3 feet tall. And an SUV is about 6.
You're at 9,
Yep.
and your freestanding sign is 25.
Mhm.
So you've got, if my math is correct, you've got 16 feet of room there.
We'll see, if you look at the drawing, see, on the left, there's the measurement, 16 feet brings you up above the Leo letters. Yeah, the proposed is 194 square feet, existing is 225.
Yeah, I'm just trying, maybe I'm on the wrong rendering. I can see there's a rendering of a person, right, on both the the smaller sign that indicates where showroom service is, and then what I call the monument sign, which is kind of the monolith, the big sign.
Yeah.
And then down below, I see your site plan illustrates where the stamped concrete is and the vehicle storage pad. I'm just trying to get an understanding of, you're referring to the height of the sign over the vehicle that's on that pad. And I'm not seeing a rendering as it relates to that to illustrate that impact.
Yeah, I don't have
Okay.
that. That doesn't exist yet, so.
I understand.
Yeah.
But if that's something that you're using to demonstrate the case, and able to view the sign with the vehicle pad there, I think that's something that might be helpful for it.
So we can superimpose that and put a vehicle on it.
Mhm. I think in our case, I don't want to put Abby on the spot, but I would like to review this a little bit more carefully myself and reach out for a little bit of guidance in the fact that we're going to see a lot of these applications. And I want to make sure that we get some good input from the council on these as far as their intent. Because I am curious about, I don't want to say legislative intent, I think it gets in the weeds, but about their direction as far as sign requirements versus the consideration of replacing existing signs versus the proliferation of new signs. I would like to get some input from them before going down the road of de facto implementing a new sign code, especially in consideration then. And I don't want my view of this being a simple update. I just like their input before I move forward. That's me.
I think from the planning department, we can issue a formal memo to just outlining that we are currently drafting amendments to the sign code to address some of these specific issues, to acknowledge that they exist.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the photo of existing conditions real quick?
This one?
Yeah, I think if, also just like supplementing the application with like, because I know what you're talking about with like a car on a like hill, like, and how does that impact, like, what is the impact of a like person on the street in a car with this elevated vehicle plus letters plus this? Because as we all know, vehicles are getting unreasonably big. So I'm like very curious about this like growth of vehicle size too, how then like visibility from the road at miles per hour and but yeah, I think that's a fairly substantial like new element in the like landscape that impacts signage as well.
Is it, sorry, I was just gonna, is the current pylon or monument sign of whatever we're calling it, is that currently 25 feet?
It's taller than that.
Taller than that, okay.
So a completely new monument sign is being installed
Right.
from the ground up.
It's actually moving
Back because of
down
that.
from the entrance a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, I think showing just like, especially if you are, like, all of these are smaller than what existing conditions are, just showing that percent decrease, and giving that to us is also just helpful information.
I get more information on that pad, so it's get that superimposed.
But yeah, we're talking about the scale of this many area variances, and they're triggered by a rebranding. That's my concern, is the how deep we're getting into interpreting the code versus making the code.
I think it would also be helpful, just as we saw with the prior application, showing what a sign would look like, a rendering if it were to be at the code level.
Yeah.
That was quick.
What's that?
That was quick. That's fine.
And I think, no, never mind.
Yeah, that's a good point about what a compliant sign would look like and the impacts on the site. Do you have any other questions? So we won't be taking action on this particular case this evening, but we will certainly leave the case open for public comment, and certainly going to reach out to the council on this one for a little bit of guidance. And then our next meeting is on the 14th, so we can consider it then. Or so if you can work with staff for rendering, we would like to have any materials back to be available for the public to weigh in on at least a week beforehand. That way it gives them the opportunity to be out into the world, provide them adequate comment, and be part of the record for us to be able to review.
Sounds good.
Martin, I would recommend, and the council has a different opinion, I would recommend to formally table the application, just take a vote on it in that manner.
We can certainly leave it open while the rendering is presented. I mean, we're
I
not.
think he's saying we should take a vote on tabling the matter.
Yeah, is that what you were saying?
No,
To,
we can just leave the applicant. We don't have to take action. I mean, we're not
I would vote,
tabling.
I would vote to.
okay, I say that because there is the 62-day clock and other elements. Typically, with the public hearing, if you're going to be leaving it open, you'd want to be specifying a reason as to why, or like what's happening for the record. So it's easier for us to kind of say
Okay.
that an application was deferred by being tabled.
Okay, yeah, previously when Richard was here, we didn't actually take any motions to table, we left them open while we sought more information about a particular application, but I'm happy to do that if people feel like that's the best practice to be able to ensure the window stays open. So a motion to table the application. Leave it on the agenda for next meeting while additional steps to add materials to the application and seek comments are sought.
Were you making the?
I know I'm not making a motion. Well, I can make a motion in this case. I'll make a motion to table the application for the reasons of supplementing the application and seeking out more information as it relates to the variance requests.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. On favor? All right, thank you. All right. New ways of doing business, huh? All right. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. You're not free yet. Okay. If we could go to the next item, it is area variance 121 and 122 for 1383 Washington Avenue. The applicant is AJ Signs. This is for replacement of existing signage with new signs and lettering for Fairfield by Marriott according to corporate branding.
So this is another rebrand. Basically, this hotel has, it's kind of interesting. In the back of the building, there's a sign right now that faces the trees. Someone built a building right next to it, so you can't actually see that sign. We're removing that. There's gonna be a new sign on the end of the building facing Washington Avenue that we already have a permit for. There's a monument sign that we're changing the faces in. We already have a permit for that. So what we're here asking for is the new sign in the peak of the building, which is over way up on the fourth floor, all that carport where you pull in. Again, smaller than what's there now. Fairfield by Marriott is the new brand, instead of Fairfield Inn and Suites. This sign relatively small when you put it up on that building as high as it's gonna go. It needs to be this size to be readable. The by Marriott letters are 10-inch letters. The Fairfield, the F in Fairfield is 3 foot tall. So this is, we have the sign of the Washington Avenue. When you pull in that parking lot, this is the only branding you'll see that this is actually the Fairfield Inn by Marriott. So we want to brand the front of the building. Again, smaller than what's there now, and as small as we feel works by code. Relatively simple.
We talk about the 1 foot or the 2 wall signs element. Because this is at the peak of the building. Where's the other? The other walls.
The existing wall signs that you're asking?
Existing one?
So there's two variances here. One is to allow 2 wall signs with maximum permitted is 1. And the other is to allow a 72-foot wall sign where the maximum permitted is 32 square feet.
So this, the one I'm asking for on the Peak of the Village is the second one, the other one's on the Washington Ave side of the building.
And there's not currently a sign there, correct?
Yes, it says existing.
There is not a sign on the Washington Ave side right now, we have a permit for it, it's not up yet. So that will go up, we're asking for this sign over the Peak as the second sign. There's 2 signs on the building now, however, there's one on the back. And there's one on the front that we're replacing. So that's where the permitted sign is going.
Yeah, so if I may, so Washington Ave here,
Mhm.
they did receive a sign permit for to place a sign
Okay, that's right.
right over here, either over here or right here,
So it's an
at
additional- okay.
32 square feet.
Thanks.
And then just for context, the request is for this
Yeah,
sign, so.
which would count as the additional sign.
That's the second sign.
There was previously a request for a sign on this awning here. I can, well, I guess not. But yeah, behind the screen, there was one there, and then when they submitted the variance after talking with the applicant, they removed that request.
So from this particular application, the reason the sign, is there a reason why the sign is being sought for the 72 square feet as opposed to 32 square feet?
32 square feet up on the 5th floor, between the 4th and 5th floor would be way too small, you wouldn't be able to see it. So we went with the size that we feel is the best size readable from across the parking lot over that big roof extension that comes out. Again, the by Marriott letters are 10 inches tall. So it's gonna be a decent amount smaller than what's there now.
Is that parking lot used for any other buildings except for the Fairfield Marriott?
Believe it's just a Fairfield.
And you have a permit already for a sign that faces Washington Avenue?
Yep,
Are there other businesses or other entities within the building?
no, it's just a hotel.
So I guess what I'm leading to is once you pull in that parking lot as directed by Washington Avenue, is there any reason that you could be confused as to what that building is?
It would just be a bare building with nothing on it. So it would kind of be, would you be comfortable walking into that with no signage on it at all?
The case I guess I'm getting at is if you pull in the lot to go to the hotel, and do you need a 72-foot square wall sign to tell you where you are from a directional standpoint? Assuming there's no other properties that are accessible by that lot. And that's the only entrance to the hotel from the lot. I guess I'm curious why a smaller sign wouldn't meet or a sign on the awning or any other alternatives considered might do the trick as far as letting people know that that's the Fairfield Hotel.
I don't think you'd be able to read it at all. It's so high up and so far away with that roof there, you wouldn't even know what it said.
So under alternatives considered, the sign on the awning was not something that was going to be considered?
It was, but we eliminated that to bring this into, more in conformance. Okay.
I think he's saying, so instead of removing the awning sign, well, instead of having the awning sign, we understand you wanted one more sign on the awning. I think what Martin is getting to is that what if you put a compliant sign on the awning instead of an uncompliant sign on the 5th floor? See what I mean?
So again, you'd rather.
So we're saying that, like, I think what Martin is trying to say is, it seems like you would be able, a 32 square feet sign, which would be compliant on the awning, because it's lower closer, then you don't need it to be as big if it's not on the 5th floor. Right, like you need it to be over the compliance of the code because it's high up. But if it was on the awning and not on the 5th floor, then maybe you don't need it to be as big.
I mean, some visibility is definitely gained by that sign from Washington Avenue as well.
Yeah, that's,
So that's, another wayfinding tool to help people find the hotel and marketing and advertising, branding.
well, that's my case is if your primary entrance is, well, your only entrance, I believe, in this property is Washington Avenue, correct? So I can understand, I can understand somebody making the case that if this was the only wall sign for the building, that people needed to find this building by that wall sign, that it would be necessarily need to be larger than code because it was the only one and wouldn't be visible from anywhere else. But the fact is there's a sign on the Washington Avenue side of the building directing people as to what the building is used for and where the building is located. So once you enter the lot, it seems to me there's no confusion once you enter the lot as to where you are or the direction to get into the building.
The one at the end of the building, if you, I don't know if you go back to the street view, there's trees there, so you're not gonna see that coming up Washington Avenue. I believe you'll see this one coming up Washington Avenue, so it definitely helps find the hotel from Washington Avenue.
Where do you want me to go?
The front of the building where we have that permitted, the sign permit we have. See, you can see you're kind of surrounded by trees, so coming up Washington, you won't see that till you're there.
Coming from the,
You've already gone past the entrance at that point.
I was just gonna say,
Coming up Washington, you won't even see that sign till you're way past. the
So
entrance.
I guess for alternatives considered, was there any thought to putting a monument sign out by the entrance?
There is a monument, it's set back a bit.
Okay, I see it, yeah. So you have,
And it doesn't really, it's, by the time you see that, it's too late.
I think, Martin, to also kind of piggybacking off your point, if this isn't necessarily the main wayfinding sign, which now I don't know if it is or it isn't now, but for alternatives considered, was there any consideration given it to making it, 42 or 52 square feet to come closer into compliance with code?
We tried a lot of different things and got it down to what we felt was the smallest we could have this and still be readable. The blue and the black letters are, they don't pop quite as well as other colors, so you're losing a little bit with that. So it's definitely, we obviously played with this, we eliminated the set on the lower roof, and we're trying to get this as close to conformance as we could and still be effective.
I guess,
So if you look at the hotel, how far past the entrance it is, if you're coming from, the right-hand side of the screen, by the time you see the sign at the end of the building, you've gone way past it. So this sign helps capture the cars coming up Washington Avenue to make the right turn in.
I guess for argument's sake, I hear what you were saying, Martin, but I think that, I get to, like, there's Google Maps, so if I'm looking for this place, and I put it in my Google Map and I booked a room and I'm going in, sure, I'll just but I get out of my car and if there's no sign that it's, I would feel like it's a little shady and I might be like, maybe I'll go next door at the other hotel down the street that may have a sign, because I'll get out of my car and be like, what? What is this place and where is it? Right, if there's no sign, but then like, do you need the I don't know, the 5th floor sign? And I guess, I don't know, can you really see it from Washington Avenue? But you can probably see
with
it.
all the trees in the way, I don't think you can. I think it's mostly
Yeah.
visible from the parking lot, my personal opinion is.
Yeah.
And, at that intersection, absolutely. But at that intersection, there's a monument sign.
Yeah.
Going the other direction, it doesn't matter because the monument sign doesn't face west.
But then I guess in the end, I don't know. Right, so if we're thinking whether, so there was a considerate, or initially the applicants wanted a sign there plus on the monument. They picked the one they thought was more important to them. Who are we to say that like it should be the other way around, right?
Well, the code says it's the other way.
Well, the code says, no, the
Yeah.
code only says.
I don't always agree with it, but that's the law. Yeah.
No, the code only says there should only be one
One
sign,
wall sign.
and it should only be
30,
32 square feet, it doesn't say.
Yeah, just to clarify, make sure we're all on the same page. If they were to have gone with the awning sign at 32 square feet or less, it would still require a variance, just not two
Yeah.
variances.
Yeah, it would require variance for this as a
Yeah.
second sign, yeah, understood.
And we are eliminating one sign that's on the back of the building. So the property's changed, they go next door.
I guess what I was trying to say is that if I did, as a, like, for your, to continue your argument's sake of like, I'm pulling out with my Google map, I do think, I guess personally, I think I like the bigger sign at the top better than the small awning sign. Just, I can understand that corporate argument of like making people feel more comfortable and safe and like I've arrived at the correct location.
And I think that's what people are generally looking for, like that in hotel architecture at the like peak of your roof line is typically where you're like, oh, here's my Hilton, here's my this, here's my that.
Yeah, I understand the reason you were making, but I guess for argument's sake, that would be my,
What's the square footage of the current sign?
When you do this, how big it is, you look at the rendering, you see it's a lot bigger.
they said papers over.
Yeah, I don't know the exact measurements, we haven't been up there with a truck. The colors of the current sign are also a little more vibrant, which is, again, just their corporate branding, but
I personally prefer the new logo.
Yeah.
It's much cleaner.
Yeah.
The second one is what appears to be two different fonts. Which just looks the old sign. I don't know if you did the old sign, so I don't want to, I don't know how much ability you have to pick fonts, but the fonts don't match on the old sign.
Right, you can argue that like this is more, like the proposed is more in
Much
character.
cleaner. Oh, 100%.
One might argue in their application, but this is in character, the proposed,
It's easier to read too.
yeah,
Yeah, especially because of the shadows from the older sign.
yeah, and there's multiple lines of text and
Mhm.
existing versus, again, show us the
Yeah.
reduction,
Which
I
is
think is also.
why I'm looking at this thinking there is a reduction in the size of the total sign area
Mhm.
because of the way the other sign is laid out. And it does fit this, I do think it fits the space better. I'm just not convinced from the alternatives considered. It's like, but it's okay. I don't have, that's why we're a board. It's not a kingdom. It is, it is a board. So. Do we have any other questions before we go to public comment? Is there anybody joining us online that loves signs as much as we do?
No, unfortunately, there's no one registered to speak on this. Maybe next time.
So we've gone to public comment, there's nobody available.
Well, so I mean, it's. Isn't this the same situation as the case right before?
I differentiate this one a little bit because we're considering one area variance as opposed to a slew.
Well, two.
Yeah, two, I'm sorry, two. But it is sort of in the same vein, but I think it's much smaller and less substantial, especially when you're considering the number of signs on Washington Avenue as opposed to Central, where you're.
I couldn't get a letter from Fairfield, we tried, but this is they don't have a choice. They have to comply to the new branding and they lose their flag. So it's
I
a
understand.
similar situation to the Hyundai situation, which, like you said, you're probably gonna see a bunch of.
I'm willing to make a motion to.
I think we need, if you want to make a motion, if we want to take some action, we should do the,
Yeah,
Seeker
the seeker,
first.
that's what I was gonna say.
okay.
That the board issues a negative declaration for seeker, for the two variants being considered trade.
Do we have a second for the motion for seeker?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do you have any other wishes of the board?
I'll make a motion that we grant area variance 0121 to allow for two wall signs where the maximum permitted is one.
I'll second.
All in favor? No. The motion carries, I believe, three to four.
I'm sorry, what was the,
I was a no. But three yeas.
all right, thank you.
And I'll make a motion to grant area variance 0122 to allow for 72 square feet wall sign where the maximum permitted is 32 square feet.
Do we have a second? If you're comfortable, don't look at me. If you're comfortable with it, you're comfortable with it.
I made my motion.
I like to dissent once in a while.
That's it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2. I'm no, but
I'm a yes.
okay. Great, motion carries. All right. Do we have any other business for the board?
Nothing from staff, no.
Okay, cool. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, great.
Second.
Are you in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Yep. I realized after the first motion, I was like, oh, I'm fine with 2 signs. Side of them. Still not sold on.
Yeah, it was